Dusty May is on a heater, and you never interrupt Dusty May while he is on a heater. We'll get into the latest with Michigan basketball right here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We're back in doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Holt, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. First, we'll get into Moustapha Thiam. I've been saying Triam. I don't know why. Thiam's commitment, as well as Morez Johnson Jr. opting for the NBA draft while retaining his intercollegiate eligibility. And then, because a lot of people seem to need this, why you should not put too much or too little stock into a spring game. For the haters, yes, we said this well before the 7-6 spring game for about a solid month. But we'll get more into that. And then finally, let's talk offensive skill positions, because there's something in the Everydayer Club that came up that we've just got to discuss. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. You get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. All right, so let's talk about what Dusty May's doing, because it's been pretty phenomenal. Michigan gets yet another commitment, this time via the transfer portal with Moustapha Thiam, the number 13 player in the country, a 7'2" center. So now you've got a guy you can run things through. I like this more in terms of like what this actually does for Michigan than getting Flory Badunga, which would have been that would have been a really good pickup. That would have been a really good, that's winning the press conference, so to speak. But Badunga's not big enough to run at the center position the way that Michigan wants to. And Moustapha Thiam is. And he's already shown that he can kind of do it, right? Not kind of, he can. He's not really a work in progress. So if you can get more out of him developmentally, that says a heck of a lot more. So you've got a guy who's 7'2", was a 4-star as a recruit before he, even before going to Cincinnati. And then now, he comes out of the transfer portal as the number 13 player in the country, according to 24/7 Sports, 14, according to Rivals. So it's not like there's a great disparity there. Number 3 center, and that makes the incoming transfers 3. I would be surprised if they do get that 4th, just because the Juke Harris, it seems like, who knows, right? It's not done. It sounds like it's Michigan or Tennessee. Michigan's offering the least of the 3 schools that are in contention. North Carolina still kind of being in there. But nonetheless, I'm not going to write it off. But I would be surprised if it was 4, because it just doesn't really feel like they needed it necessarily. Now, maybe they end up needing it, but you have a large class when it comes to the recruits. They're still, even though he's not visiting, Obinna Ekezi, again, I don't remember if I'm saying that right. He's not visiting, but Michigan's still in it with him, which, I think that would be a big win if they can manage him. But you've still got all these other guys that are absolutely gamers. And I had this up. I closed it apparently. You still got, Quinn Costello's the name that I keep forgetting to mention. He's number 44 in the country. Lincoln Cosby is 45, and they're both forwards. They can, we're talking recruiting here. 6'8" for Cosby, 6'10" for Quinn Costello. These guys can certainly, they have a lot of big men right now, which is great because that's how Michigan tends to operate. And then you still have, Brandon McCoy. You still have the extent of Elliot Cadeau and Trey McKinney. But you've got a lot of big men, just looking at what they're bringing in versus what they have. They didn't bring in any guards in the transfer portal, right? So, and even Juke Harris is a guard at Wake Forest. He's 6'7". He's a guy that you think for that Yaxel Lendeborg role, but as the wing. But at the same time, this is kind of how Dusty May wants to operate. And to get the 7'2" center, highly coveted, highly rated, very capable, considering we think that it's likely Adai Mara's gone. And now you don't know about Morez Johnson, who absolutely could still slide down, even though he's not quite as big, 6'10". But at the same time, like you can still see the vision working. And let's talk about Morez for a second. I think it's big just for Michigan's chances, because I still think that they want to bring him back. And, his social media presence kind of indicates that he's been more than receptive. Like when John Rothstein put out that he was entering the NBA draft with the capability of returning, he noted that he's currently being projected to being a mid first round pick. So, that they had the relatively frustrated question yesterday on the mailbag and be like, who's advising him? He's a late first rounder. Well, clearly that's not what people are hearing right now. So that's, that's kind of typical, like for whatever reason, the drafts and people leaving Michigan always seems to get a lot of people devaluing what players, where they could go in the drafts of the respective sports. I don't really know why that becomes a thing. Plus, like you've just got a wealth of players if he doesn't come back. And yes, it will be different faces, but like Morez was around for 1 year. He was phenomenal for most of it. And I'd really love to see what he's able to do with another year under his belt, being a little bit more of a focal point. But if not, I mean, you've got 3 transfers. That's kind of like the high end of where I thought they would go, considering what they retained and what they're bringing in. You've got a bunch of high level players. You've got a 5-star, 3 4-stars, a 3-star, and then Marcus Muller, who's not rated, but at the same time, he's rehabilitating from cancer. Not sure, if and when he's going to be able to get back, and you hope that he can, but you can't imagine that this next year would be that year. So, I mean, you've just got a pretty good collection here. Now, people keep asking me what do I think the starting lineup's going to be, and we're still kind of working with an incomplete deck, so it's kind of hard for me to say. I mean, right now, if I was to try to figure it out, I'd say it'd be Cadeau, McKinney, Jalen Reed, the LSU transfer, JP Estrella, the Tennessee transfer, and Moustapha Thiam. That would be my guess at the moment, with Brandon McCoy being a sixth man, and you probably see some Quinn Costello and Lincoln Cosby mixed in as well. But if Morez Johnson comes back, that changes things. If Juke Harris decides to commit to Michigan, which absolutely is still on the table, then that changes. Those things could absolutely just thwart that. But I mean, even if not, that's a pretty solid setup for next year. And kind of weird that we're looking so hard at what next year can be, because we're still in the month that Michigan won a national championship, but that's kind of where we're at. So, I think that this is a pretty incredible job, just to at least a retooling. And I don't think they're done yet. I think there will be another twist or turn or 2 or 3 before we get to the summer, when it's like, okay, this is what they've got. So a little premature. I don't know why I decided to say it that way. It sounded more literary, I guess. I'm all about literary. You can't really see it on camera. I just got a new Lord of the Rings box set. It's heavy. They're heavy hardcovers. Okay, I'm done with that. Let's move on. Let's talk about the spring game again, but just in a different light, kind of, just because there's a lot of people out there being undude. So I want to kind of address that. Let's do that here in just a moment. But before we do, the NBA playoffs are here. where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. Here's what I like about it. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, that extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. It just makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. Listen, you're going to want to get on the Detroit Pistons. They're surging in a big way. And even they're not even the top odds to make the Eastern Conference, make the NBA Finals the Eastern Conference representative. So you can get great odds on that. And you know they're the best. So there you go. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Get Locked On Wolverines ad-free with the Everydayer Club Plus members-only Discord access. Join at lockedonwolverines.supercast.com. All right, there's a lot of people out there being really undude about the spring game, and they're just... What I don't understand is how you can watch or listen to this show. And I understand you're going to formulate your own opinions, and I don't expect your opinions all to match mine. But the amount of, and it wasn't just yesterday's mailbag, but just the amount of messages I get, the amount of consternation I see of people who I know watch or listen to the show every single day that heard me for a month plus, really honestly too. Maybe it wasn't every day, but it was a lot. People, what do you expect? What do you want to see from the spring game? How should we watch the spring game? What should our takeaways be from the spring game? And I sat there and said with a straight face, meaning I wasn't bluffing here. There's really not a lot. And don't put too much into it. Right? If it's absolutely abysmal, and I know people are looking at Bryce and saying, well, it was abysmal, I would say that you are overreacting, good sirs. But there's a lot of reasons why you can't sit and look at the spring game and take too much away from it. I have a couple extra reasons. And I think the biggest and most important one is if they were concerned about Bryce Underwood and felt like he needed the work, you wouldn't have seen him for one quarter. If they felt, and remember, I know there's a lot of people who are oh, I don't, trust the coaches is one thing and whatever. Number one, this is a new coaching staff that have a track record. Number two, these are the people who see him every day. I understand that people don't always we've been burned before with trust the coaches. And yeah, sometimes the coaches make bad decisions. We have not really seen in the last 20 years Kyle Whittingham make a heck of a lot of bad decisions in terms of who he's playing and things of that nature. Sometimes he's been kind of thrust into untenable situations due to Mr. Cam Rising having essentially a body made of glass, if that. But otherwise, they've typically made really good decisions. And they're the people who are seeing these players day in, day out. And they didn't feel like Bryce Underwood needed all this extra work. They didn't treat the spring game like this was okay, this is practice 15. We're going to treat it like a practice. We're going to try to get the most out of our guys. No, they instead did exactly what Kyle Whittingham said they were going to do. Sounds very, it's he's like Thanos. And I'm Captain Marvel. He did, or no, it wasn't Captain Marvel who said this. It was it's Black Widow, I think. He did exactly what he said he was going to do. 50% of all people. Okay. But you know what I'm saying, right? He made it pretty apparent, yeah, we really don't feel like we need to see 12 to 18 guys. Expectation is we weren't. Still saw a lot of them, just at least for a moment. More so for fan service than anything. And then, the first quarter thud period's out. Bryce Underwood's to the sideline. All right, Tommy Carr, go get yours. So I just think it's you don't want to underreact if it's abysmal. But again, I don't think it was abysmal. These weren't real. They weren't really putting Bryce in a situation where it was let's see what we can get out of him. If that was the case, you would have seen the format of the spring game being a heck of a lot different. It would have looked a lot like Michigan's earlier spring games under Jim Harbaugh, where it was like a legit competitive, not split squad, all of that. So I think that, but on the other side, everyone's like going nuts over Tommy Carr, which again, I'm not denigrating him, but like, I guarantee a lot of you who are doing that are the same ones that were freaking out over Brandon Peters in 2017. Like, just relax. There's a reason why, and I'm not denigrating this guy either, but like, there's a reason why we didn't flip out over Jeremiah Lowe having 2 picks last year, being like, oh, Michigan they got their quarterback. They got their cornerback, right? Like, oh, thanks for your service, Zeke Berry, Jair Hill. We'll take it from here, right? Like, there's a reason why you didn't do that. It's because you looked at it and said, yeah, that's great in a spring game, but we'll see down the road. I urge you to take that same urgency with Tommy Carr, not because he's not good or won't be good, but because it just does not make sense. He is almost certainly not going to see the field this year unless it's break glass in case of emergency. You still have Braden Fowler-Nicolosi coming. He is easily the most experienced guy. He's almost certainly going to be the number 2. He could be higher, but we'll see. So or not higher, but lower. We'll see. But so there's that aspect. I had another point to this, and it was right on the tip of my tongue, and I went to transition to it and just completely forgot it. Nonetheless, like, I understand the impulse. It's the only like ability of part of football that you've seen, and memories are short. You can't remember Bryce throwing, like, you remember the bad things in the season opener last year. You don't remember that he threw for 250 yards in his debut and looked mostly crisp doing it. You don't remember him having a 300-yard game against Northwestern because you remember more the trials and tribulations that faced in the final 2 games. You don't think really as much about, hey, against Maryland, he looked a heck of a lot better. You're not thinking about that. You're thinking about the worst parts and saying, like, this is who he is without remembering the good parts. So you've got a recency bias that I think you should, like, I'm not saying get rid of the memory of the bad things, but like, understand that 1 month doesn't erase the bad things generally. It's going to take some time. You're still probably going to see some bad things this year. But can the coaching staff with another several months at their disposal limit those things? And when he's playing behind his full offensive line with all of his receivers, with the running backs he has and the defense he has against other teams, can that look different and better? Almost certainly. So I just think that too much has been put onto the spring game, and I felt like we learned our lesson, but I'm guessing we haven't. So hence this wonderful PSA. Coming up as another PSA soon, why you should be patient for recruits for recruiting to pick up. I'm surprised we haven't hit that yet, but I think getting Camden Lapati to commit a couple weeks ago, I think probably helped satiate those who are eager to jump on why do we not have a full class yet? It's coming though. It's coming, right? It's an every year thing. We've only had 1 year where we haven't done it, and since this show's been going since 2018. So, all right, I'm going to talk some skill positions because there's some interesting things going on there. So let's talk about that here in just a moment. But before we do, workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you still have to fill sitting open. When the pressure is on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed, Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's the stat that says it all. In the minute that I have been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. I'll tell you what, if you're watching the show, I picked the right way to dress today. Because I am wearing the Michigan basketball, one of the home field shirts, Shock the World Boys. I threw on a Michigan hat from the game, one of our old sponsors here of the show. Both of them have sponsored the show, but nonetheless. I put them out. I put the hat on in particular to match the shirt to take Zuri out for a walk. And then it was the 3 minutes that all of the things happened, basketball-wise, Morez and Moustapha Thiam and all that. So lots to enjoy there, or at least one half to enjoy. I think it's celebratory reasons for cause for celebration that Morez is not, that he's still retaining his eligibility. I think that tells you a lot. All right, Everydayer Club. I'm going to pull this up. I feel like we're often referencing Ramos Herrick here. He said, I was thinking about this yesterday. Our wide receiver 3 position is a competition between 2 5-star recruits. Some people are advocating for 2 running back sets to put in our 5-star running back, which would come at the expense of our 3rd 5-star wide receiver. For God's sake, Bryce, don't F this one up. Get the ball out on time. Here's the good. Here's why this is really intriguing to me, because having spoken to several people, I think you're going to see those 2 running back sets, but you aren't necessarily always going to see them as running backs, right? Like we saw Jordan Marshall split out wide in this the spring game. Those are the types of things you could take away from a spring game, right? Formations, because the chances of them using one of those formations again in a real game is probably pretty likely. That's the type of stuff I think you can take away from a spring game. But they feel like Savion Hyder is so good that they don't really want to take him off the field. And yeah, I think that there's a degree to which that might be worthwhile over having Celestia Moa or Jamie French on the field at times. But here's the good news. You can cycle through some of these guys, right? Like you don't have to have every single offensive play with Andrew Marsh and JJ Buchanan on the field. Now, I understand that's probably going to give you a lot of room for success, but so is maybe having Andrew Marsh and Celestia Moa or JJ Buchanan and Jamie French. There's going to be times where they're not going to have Savion on the field, but then you are going to have, Jordan Marshall or Bryson Kuzdal and maybe a 3 wide receiver set. Maybe you have Hogan Hansen in there. Maybe you don't. The thing about what they have now from an offensive standpoint is a lot of flexibility, and it's starting to look more than what it would just be on paper. Because if nothing else, if I'm looking at it, I'm saying, okay, Bryce Underwood with an offensive line that still needs some work. Got to have some pretty good faith in Jim Harding. He just sent his 2 tackles from Utah. I mean, they were both 4 stars, but still, so are Michigan's. But he just sent them into the first round. He's working with more talent than he's ever had to work with, as has every single coach not named Tony Alford. Right? Tony Alford is the only other one that is maybe and probably at some point in his Ohio State career when he had like Mike Weber and J.K. Dobbins at the same time, 2 5-stars. That might be about it. But otherwise, there's no. There are no coaches on this coaching staff that have worked with anywhere close to as much talent as they currently have at their disposal. On paper, right? Recruiting talent, of course. So you have that going for you. But with this, you just have so much more flexibility offensively. It's absolutely stacked what Michigan has right now. Now, some of it's unproven, right? And some of it's lightly proven, right? Like Andrew Marsh and JJ Buchanan, as much as I don't want to admit it, and I'm sure none of you want to hear it, are lightly proven, right? Neither have reached 1,000 yards in a season, right? They both have some work to do. It's just the good news is they both were much better than anticipated in their freshman year and performed well beyond what you would expect from true freshmen last year. So you have those guys. Jordan Marshall, despite injury issues and being number 2 for much of the year, still almost got to 1,000 yards rushing last year. I think it was 991 yards, something like that. So it's kind of operating like Karan Higdon did in 2017. And yet you have him along with Savion Hyder, who's got all of the promise in the world from the running back position. You've got Hogan Hansen and Zach Marshall and Deacon Tonielli, guys who have shown you that they all can play the tight end position. It's on paper, this is about as much depth. I mean, I didn't even include Jamie French and Celessi Moa into that equation. Like, those are a lot of bodies of guys who can go out there and make plays. And you think back to some years like 2015 and 16, they did a lot offensively, which honestly was probably the best the wide receivers have been, when it was mostly just 2 guys. Mostly. I mean, yeah, you saw a little bit of Grant Perry, but mostly it was J.U. Chesson and Mara Darbo. Jake Butt at tight end. And every now and again, you'd see some other guys make some plays. But generally, like, no one's sitting here writing home about Eddie McDoom and Kakoa Crawford and whatever, right? Like, when you're thinking about those years, you're thinking about the 2 big outside guys that made the most plays. You're thinking about Jake Butt, and that was really it. It was a 3-headed monster. So I understand in today's college football, you usually need more than that. But, like, there's no reason, again, not to denigrate guys, but, like, I feel like what Michigan has a running back with Jordan Marshall and Savion Hyder is a heck of a lot better than what they were trotting out there with Davion Smith and, Ty Isaac in 16. I think he played a little bit in 15, right? I think he came in 14 and had to sit out, right? Chris Evans, right? Like, they're just in a better spot with what the depth that they have is. The only time that Michigan kind of felt like it had this type of depth was 2018, 2019, when you're sitting there looking at it and saying, and going into the 2018 season, that you've got Donovan Peoples-Jones, Tariq Black, although questions about his health, and Nico Collins, along with Chris Evans, Karan Higdon, right? Like, and to me, this looks as good in some ways, but better in terms of we've seen more steady, reliable production and explosiveness from some of these guys. So I think it's a really intriguing scenario to be a part of. And then you've also got an offensive coordinator that, like, has shown, like, I can get a lot out of guys. That's just a recipe for success. Like Jason Beck with these guys. I understand limited amount of time on task for him, limited amount of time on task for, Andrew Marsh, JJ Buchanan, Celessi Moa, Jamie French, like, you name it. But, like, what makes this that much more intriguing, kind of to my point from yesterday when talking about Bryce, is like this kind of idea of like, oh, he might just be who he is. And it's like, well, then you're looking at it, any other guy that's a second-year player and saying he is who he is. And that's just almost certainly untrue. The fact that you have so much youth, I mean, you got to get past week 2 against Oklahoma, but man, the sky is really the limit for this offense. And I know the spring game did not look like it, but again, I want you to not look at it in that light, right? Like, spring game didn't look great last year. Granted, offense wasn't like great, but like it was better than it was in the spring game. Pretty much, with the exception of the Ohio State game, maybe Purdue, it was better than that. So I think that there's a lot to be excited about with this Michigan offense. All right, that's going to do it for us today, for this week. We'll be back on Monday. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.